Savage Planning Commission. It's Thursday, April 24th, 7 o'clock. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Could I have roll call, please?
Yes. Nelson?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
Item?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Christensen? Zessman?
Here.
Very good, thank you. Next up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could all please stand, face the flag, and state the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Do we have any changes or amendments, Angie?
No changes or amendments.
All right, then at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So moved.
A motion by Item,
Second.
second by Wolf. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Next up on the agenda is the minutes from the March 6th Planning Commission meeting. Anybody see anything that was out of order or amiss? I did not. This time then, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
So moved.
I have a motion by Item. Do I have a second? Second by Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Next up is the public hearing. We have a planned unit development amendment, including master sign plan modifications to building and design standards for Savage Crossing plats as requested on behalf of the Ross Dress for Less tenant, project 25-14. Angie, if you would, please.
Thank you, Commission members. So this is a PUD amendment for the Savage Crossings. This property is this tenant is Ross Dress for Less is a new retail use that will occupy the former Office Max retail space, if you're familiar with that, where that was, within the Savage Crossings development. The property is located in the southeast quadrant of Highway 13 South and County Road 14. It's outlined in red there on your screen. The property is zoned as PMD, which stands for Planned Mixed Use District. The Ross site is part of the Savage Crossings Planned Unit Development, and the overall project was approved in 2002 as part of that PUD approval process that did include building and site design standards, which also included master signage plan for the multi-tenant properties within the development. The applicant tonight is requesting an amendment to the PUD to allow consideration for certain exceptions to allow basically taller letters for signage and some other modifications, which I'll provide in more detail. The site is guided for future land use plan, shows it as mixed-use development, which is consistent with the zoning. So here we're just looking at the proposed modifications that the applicant is requesting. I would say that some sign transfers were allowed, and larger signage was also allowed for freestanding signs near Highway 13 and near Egan Drive, largely due to the elevation and sightline concerns for the site with the lack of visibility of the buildings. Also, through the approvals target was allowed a larger sign since it is an anchor tenant, which is basically a larger tenant within that multi-tenant retail strip. No exceptions were specifically approved for this, what we would call a junior anchor tenant, which is kind of a larger tenant within this multi-tenant commercial retail strip area. So no exceptions were previously established for the junior anchor tenant, and Ross Dress for Less tenant is essentially asking for taller letters for the wall signage than what is currently allowed, and that would be smaller than what is allowed for Target, but larger than what the underlying design standards allow for. So we're just looking at what those specific modifications would include. As far as design standards, getting in more detail, the applicant's also proposing minor modifications to those design standards to allow for the addition of white finish to be included as an option for the wall sign letters, and also adding retainers as an option under the signage fabrication. So you can see there are kind of those modifications proposed in red text. Here we're looking at the west elevation for what is proposed for signage on the building. The Ross Dress for Less, all in all caps. And then on the south side, which faces South Park Drive, here we're looking at the letters in all caps, Ross. I will note that clarification, I did have an error in the staff report, so in red here, on the west elevation, the Ross letters that are in all caps, they're not 72 inches. They're actually 54 inches is what's proposed. And the Dress for Less capital letters are not 42 inches. They are actually only 33 inches as proposed. Still, the size of the proposed signage is 171.75 square feet, so that still remains the same. The south elevation, that's correct for what was included in the staff report. So actually, the letters are smaller than what I had included in the staff report. So existing master sign plan, wall sign criteria does allow for a certain percentage of the wall for the frontage, and then average height that can be taken in to consideration for what is allowed for the actual letters. And for whatever reason, at the time when this PUD was approved, capital letters and logos were not to exceed 36 inches in height, was just what was established. Again, so PUDs don't typically follow the regular city code in terms of what we have for sign regulations. Typically, there's a master sign plan that is approved during that PUD process. Not for all PUDs, but this PUD did have specific sign regulations that were tied to that approval. So we do have to follow those rules. And what they're asking for is to amend those regulations to allow exceptions. I will say that in summary, the signage, the sign area is compliant. It's just the height of those letters that don't comply with what the underlying design standards were that were approved. So they're asking to increase the height of the actual letters. And then I would say we do have a public hearing. So this is a PUD amendment. It does require a public hearing. City had not received any objections or comments or even questions from the public until this evening. We did receive an email, which I distributed. I made a copy and placed on your tables in front of you. Placed in front of you for consideration. I don't know if you've all had a chance to read through that or if you'd like me to read through it. I'd be happy to do that, but basically the resident is within, so we notify all properties within 350 feet as required by state statute. Since this is a public hearing, this resident does live within that 350-foot buffer from the property. So they did voice just expressing some concerns with allowing for increased size of sign. They've expressed basically, just being the proximity to residential homes in the area, existing light pollution, and then maybe the contribution to noise pollution if, foot traffic were to pick up with kind of maybe more the advertising of the signage if it were allowed to be larger, and then just taking into consideration long-term neighborhood character. What I would offer is that, and this wasn't included, not every potential research is included in all staff reports, but I would share with you that the former Office Max tenant space, their signage, did not actually comply with these design standards. I don't know if it was a staff error in review, could have been an oversight, but I would suggest that for consideration that Office Max, the height of the letters were 52 inches, and what is being proposed tonight is like 2 inches taller than that. So if this were to be approved, the signage would look very similar, in my opinion, to what was there before. I'm not sure if the city's ever received complaint or concern about that Office Max signage. I would also just share with you that in comparison with the underlying city code, generally speaking for other commercial districts, signage typically is allowed to be 20% of a wall area of a sign, or up to 150 square feet, not to exceed 150 square feet. So basically allowing whichever is larger. And that's within the I-1, I-2 zoning district. the C1 and C3 zoning districts. And C2 district allows something a little bit different. But basically, and then the BP district also allows for like 10% of a wall area. So generally speaking, the underlying city code, just for reference perspective, we allow up to 150 square feet typically for a maximum sign. In the BP district, we allow up to 200 square feet. And there's various other language, based on frontage of the lot. I would also share that we are, so this request is similar to what our code already allows, because the total wall sign on the west wall is 171 square feet. So it's similar. It's in between the 150 square feet and the 200 square feet that we do allow in our city code. Again, the regular city code sign regulations don't necessarily apply to this property, since it was done as PUD and has its own special sign regulations, but just to give you some perspective there. And then I'm happy to answer any questions you have of me before we open up to public hearing. We do have a representative here on behalf of the applicant also tonight if you do have questions.
All right, very good. Thank you, Angie. Question, I guess I've never paid attention driving by. Do you know or happen to know if they shut the lights off on any of these signs on the Target or at the previous Office Max or any other PUD
I don't think so,
buildings?
but I don't know that for sure.
Do we have is there anything in the PUD that requires them to shut it off after business hours?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other further questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, Angie, thank you for the Office Max reference. I was wondering about that. Do you know, I can't recall, but do you know if they have that southern-facing sign as well? Or is
We
it
do
just
not.
the west side?
No, I looked for that the other
Okay,
day.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Anything further for Angie? All right, very good, thank you. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing at 7:12. And if the applicant would like to address the commission, he may. Just please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Mark Oslin. I'm a partner at Tumoler, Cheskis, and Oslin in Prior Lake, and I represent Ross Dress for Less. I just wanted to briefly address the Commission and thank the city staff for working with us on this. I know my client is very excited to become a member of the Savage business community and just be part of the community and contribute. And this sign is really important to their business. Just the setback of the property and kind of where it falls, the signage that was in the PUD was just not adequate. Frankly, it probably would have looked inadequate, kind of silly, frankly. And so we approached the staff about trying to figure out, what would be a reasonable workaround. Initially, they had proposed a 72-inch sign, and because that was in line with kind of what Ross uses nationally. And it became clear that it probably wasn't the best idea for a lot of different reasons, including the surrounding community, because there were those residential houses, to try and get a sign that was larger than what Office Max used. So I know that was an important objective to my client, was to not expand, at least not significantly, the footprint of the sign and have a greater impact than what had been there for years. The technology that they're planning to use is state-of-the-art. It's the best sign and lights that retailers can use. So in terms of concerns about noise pollution, there won't be any excess. It simply is what was in place the entire time. In terms of the other concerns, I would say, this is a commercial development. It's been a commercial development for some time. Allowing my client to reasonably advertise and market their business with a wall sign shouldn't have any impact on the noise pollution that's happening. So certainly I can address any other specific questions that you may have from the tenant, from Ross's perspective. And otherwise, just thank you for your consideration and time tonight.
Do you know if the client shuts off their sign after business hours?
I guess that hasn't come up. I would feel comfortable saying that that isn't their practice. I guess I'm driven by relatively late Savage Crossings, and all the signs are illuminated. So my impression is that it's their intention to leave the sign on all the time, which is what the other tenants have been doing.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions for applicant? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commission, do we have anything further to discuss while the hearing's open? All right, I'll ask once, twice, 3 times? Okay, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Item, second by Wolf. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Public hearing closed at 7:16. Okay. Angie, do you have anything further?
Just findings of fact are required for a PUD amendment. Those have been included in the staff report for your consideration. I'm happy to go through those if you would like. Otherwise, they're fairly straightforward. Development Review Committee did review this and recommended supporting approval for the application that's being requested with condition of a sign permit application that's required. That's standard city code does require sign permit application. Yeah, and then I would just offer that in general, we're still working on city code zoning and subdivision regulations, so we will be looking at signage regulations more specifically, hopefully soon. So be looking forward to that as a separate project. Staff is recommending approval, and if you have any further questions,
Just for clarity, the proposed signage on the front of the building is 2 inches larger than what is there now. And
Yep, that's
the
right.
proposed signage is smaller than what is allowed under the current city signage ordinance, if this wasn't a PUD, correct?
right, it'd be similar to the underlying zoning code. 150 square feet is the max that's allowed for most wall signs, but in some cases, 200 square feet is allowed for signs in the underlying city code.
All right, and the city, they're looking to pull most signage regulation out of PUDs?
We're trying and hoping to eliminate this master sign plan, things from PUDs in the future. If we have any opportunity to amend PUDs, possibly if we amend our sign regulations to allow some more flexibility and be more consistent with current practices, more modern technology and whatnot, we're hoping that that will alleviate the need for any type of master sign plans. So trying to get out of the business of having master sign plans. It becomes very cumbersome to track city code regulations and then also PUD regulations that are specific, that have specific sign regulations. It becomes a nightmare to track. So, which is why, Office Max could have very well been overlooked when the sign permit application was approved.
So if this proposal would come in a year from now, it's likely that we would have just stripped the master sign
Hopefully.
regulation out of the PUD
Yeah.
and just had it fall underneath the city's ordinance.
Possibly, if the landlord and property owners were in favor of doing that, staff would likely recommend that moving forward.
Very good. Thank you. All right, Commission, do we have anything further for Angie? Do we have anything further to discuss?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to state that I think this request is reasonable, considering that the previous tenant had a similar signage in place for many years, and seeing that the applicant had the foresight to recognize that their sign requirements might exceed what was allowed, to go to the city and to go by the book as opposed to just putting it there is refreshing and welcoming as new tenants to the space. I think it shows good stewardship, and I appreciate that gesture.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Item. Do we have anything further? All right, and then in this case, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the planned unit development amendments, including master sign, plan modification, building and design standards for the Savage Crossing plats as requested on behalf of Ross Dress for Less tenant, project 25-14.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make that motion with an amendment to also adopt the findings of fact listed in the staff report.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Wolf. We have motion on the table from Commissioner Wolf.
Second.
Have a second by Item. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Thank you for coming in, sir.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
It looks like next up on the agenda is business, and it looks like there is none. And then you have some informational updates listed.
Yep, it's just some general information. This is on the city's website and also included in the City Connection. So just reminders that this Saturday, April 26th, there's a lot of events going on in the city, including Tree Pickup Day from 10 a.m. to noon at the Savage Public Works. And I believe that's only for trees that were already purchased, so you can't go there and just purchase trees. So this is trees that have been purchased in advance. There is a community cleanup day also, April 26th, and I believe there was a registration for that online. There's more information on the city website pertaining to that. And then there's an Arbor Day celebration from 10 a.m. to noon. Lots of fun stuff planned for that, so feel free to check that out. And then Saturday, May 3rd is Savage's annual recycling day at the Public Works facility, and that's from 8 a.m. to noon, and there's more information available on the website pertaining to those items. Our next Planning Commission meeting date was scheduled for May 8th, but I believe we will be canceling that meeting. So look for that email coming soon. We have no items that are ready for public hearing or to be brought forward, so I believe May 22nd would be the next Planning Commission meeting date. And then just other items, we're, working on that code update project still, the zoning and subdivision regulations. We're getting closer. I'd say, I believe the only things we're still working on are related to the environmental sections of the city code. The Hamilton overlay district, so looking at some specific regulations there. Our land use, the actual uses allowed are permitted in the city, so looking at those things. We're shooting for maybe June possibly, but we'll see if we can get there. It's a busy time of year, and we were hoping to get further along by now, but we're hoping for June. So
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. All right, do we have anything further then at that?
no, that's everything.
Okay. Then at this point, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Wolf and a second by Item. All in favor?